Walk through Paris today, and these streets feel permanent, solid, established beyond question. Stone buildings rise on either side, their facades carefully maintained or artfully weathered. Numbered doors mark each entrance with bureaucratic precision. Cafes spill into the street with chairs and tables, claiming public space as commercial territory, filling the air with conversation and the smell of coffee. But in 1650, during the reign of the young Louis XIV, many of these same streets, the same physical routes through the same neighborhoods, carried quieter, more ambiguous reputations. Certain addresses were known without being openly discussed. Certain buildings served functions that everyone understood, but no one formally acknowledged.
In this video, I use modern artificial intelligence tools to bring historical records, court documents, police reports, and contemporary written accounts to life, reconstructing scenes with attention to documented reality rather than sensationalized imagination.
But my purpose is not to sensationalize the past or to present it through any particular moral framework that would distort understanding. Instead, I want to step with you into an ordinary Parisian brothel as it actually existed and understand how the people inside it, particularly the women whose lives were shaped by this work, actually lived their daily reality. Paris in 1650 is a city of profound contrasts. Crowded beyond what infrastructure can comfortably support, dramatically unequal in ways that are visible on every street, and tightly controlled by overlapping authorities who compete for jurisdiction over different aspects of urban life. The city is home to an extraordinary range of humanity compressed into limited space. Nobles and clergy occupy the highest social positions, controlling vast wealth and wielding political power that shapes every aspect of Parisian life. Merchants and artisans form a substantial middle tier, organized into powerful guilds that regulate their trades and protect their economic interests. Below them exists a vast population of servants working in noble and merchant households, beggars who survive through charity and whatever work they can find, and migrants who arrive constantly from provinces seeking opportunities that Paris promises but doesn't always deliver. Sex work occupies a strange position in this social and legal landscape. It is officially condemned by both church and state as morally corrupting, a threat to social order and family stability. Religious authorities preach against it. Civil authorities periodically crack down on it. Moralists write tracts denouncing it. But it is also unofficially tolerated, even tacitly accepted as an inevitable feature of urban life. Authorities see brothels through contradictory lenses, simultaneously viewing them as immoral institutions that should not exist, dangerous spaces that harbour crime and disease, yet somehow unavoidable given the realities of human nature and urban demographics. So brothels exist in this uncomfortable middle space, regulated more by fear of punishment than by any clear legal framework. They operate semi-openly, known to neighbours and authorities alike, but always vulnerable to sudden enforcement actions that can destroy lives and livelihoods with little warning or recourse. The brothel I want you to imagine is not some elaborate establishment catering to aristocratic clientele. It's an ordinary townhouse, indistinguishable from dozens of others on its street, located in a working-class neighbourhood where such establishments can operate with somewhat less scrutiny than they would face in wealthier areas. From the outside, the building presents an unremarkable face to the street. Shuttered windows prevent anyone passing by from seeing inside, maintaining the discretion that both proprietors and clients require. There is no signage announcing what happens inside, no painted board, no symbol, nothing whatsoever to attract attention or advertise services. Those who need to know already know. Those who don't need to know aren't meant to find out. Inside, the building's architecture has been adapted to its current function through minimal but significant modifications. Narrow staircases connect floors, barely wide enough for two people to pass. These stairs are deliberately designed to control traffic flow, ensuring clients can come and go without excessive encounters with each other. Small rooms with beds dominate the upper floors. Each room contains the absolute minimum necessary for the work conducted there. A bed, perhaps a small table, a basin for washing, maybe a chair. Heavy curtains hang in doorways and over windows, serving the dual purpose of blocking sound that might carry to other rooms or to the street, and providing some minimal sense of privacy for transactions that are inherently private yet commercially organized. Furniture throughout the house is minimal, functional rather than decorative. Every item serves a clear purpose. Nothing is present simply for comfort or aesthetic pleasure. Cleanliness is inconsistent, dependent on the resources available and the standards of whoever manages the house. Some rooms are maintained reasonably well, others are not. Privacy is fragile at best. Walls are thin, sounds carry despite the curtains, and everyone in the building is constantly aware of everyone else's presence and activity. Everything about the space is arranged for efficiency and discretion rather than comfort or pleasure. The goal is to move clients through quickly, to maintain enough discretion to avoid attracting unwanted official attention, and to maximize the number of transactions that can occur in limited space during limited hours. The women working in this house are predominantly young, most in their late teens or 20s, though a few are older, women who've been doing this work for years and have survived hazards that claimed many of their peers. Some are Paris-born, daughters of the city who grew up in working-class neighborhoods not far from where they now work. Many are not Parisian at all. A significant number came to the city seeking employment in legitimate trades, as domestic servants in wealthy households, as seamstresses in the growing garment trades, as laundry workers washing the endless volumes of linen that Parisian households require. The paths that brought them to sex work are varied, but share common patterns. Illness that prevented them from performing domestic labour led to dismissal without references. Pregnancy, whether from consensual relationships or sexual violence, made them unemployable in respectable households. Simple economic desperation when other work didn't pay enough to survive on. Dismissal from service positions due to accusations of theft or moral misconduct, often unjust. Some fled abusive situations. Some had family connections to women already in the trade. Very few chose this work deliberately, after calculating that it offered better income than alternatives available to women of their class and circumstances. Most did not choose it in any meaningful sense. They were pushed into it by circumstances that left them with no better options they could identify. What they share, regardless of how they arrived here, is constant calculation. Every day involves the same fundamental questions. How much can I earn today, given how many clients are likely to come? How long before I must leave this work, either because my body can no longer endure it, or because I've saved enough to attempt something else? What specific risks can I survive? Which clients to accept? Which to refuse? How much violence to tolerate? What diseases I might contract?
Come in, my dear.
The emotional reality of this work is complex, shifting, and varies dramatically by the hour and by individual temperament and circumstance. Before clients arrive for the day, the dominant emotions are anxiety, anticipation, and resignation blended together in ways that are difficult to separate. Anxiety about how many men will come, about whether any will be violent, about whether this will be a profitable day or a wasted one. Anticipation not of pleasure, but of getting through it, of earning enough to justify the cost of being here. Resignation that this is what today holds, that no alternative presents itself, that this is simply what must be done. Between clients, when brief pauses occur in the relentless flow of transactions, different emotions emerge. Relief that the last one is over, that it went reasonably well, or at least not catastrophically badly. Exhaustion, accumulating in the body and mind from the repetitive physical and emotional labour. Quiet conversation with other women in the house, sometimes genuine camaraderie and mutual support, Sometimes competitive tension about money and clients, often a mixture of both. Many women develop the psychological capacity to detach emotionally from what's happening to their bodies. Time becomes something to endure rather than experience, a period to get through with as little conscious presence as possible. This detachment can feel like protection or like a disturbing disconnection from one's own life, or both simultaneously. Fear is a constant background presence, never entirely absent even during the safest, most routine moments. Fear of violence from clients who might suddenly turn dangerous, who might refuse to pay, who might inflict harm for pleasure or anger. Fear of disease, syphilis and other sexually transmitted infections that medicine of this era cannot effectively treat, that can lead to disfigurement, madness and early death. Fear of arrest, because despite the semi-tolerated status of brothels, women can be arrested at any moment, subjected to punishment, imprisonment or banishment. Hope exists, but is carefully rationed, doled out in small doses because too much hope feels dangerous when it's so likely to be disappointed. Hope that today will be better than yesterday. Hope that enough money can be saved to leave. Hope that no disaster will strike. Hope that somehow this situation is temporary, even when everything suggests it might not be. Time within the brothel is strictly managed according to systems designed to maximize efficiency and profit while minimizing risk. A typical client's visit usually lasts between 15 and 30 minutes, long enough to complete the transaction, short enough to keep traffic moving and reduce the time any particular man is visible coming or going. This time, discipline serves multiple purposes. It increases earning potential by allowing more appointments in a day. It reduces risk of discovery or raid by limiting the duration of suspicious activity. And it maintains clear boundaries that prevent complications from extended interaction. Longer stays are possible, but cost significantly more, reflecting both the opportunity cost of time that could be spent with other clients and the increased risk of extended presence. These longer visits are reserved for wealthier clients who can pay premium rates. Women in active periods may see anywhere from 6 to 10 men in a day, sometimes significantly more during festivals, saints' days, or periods when soldiers or labourers receive pay. During slower periods, certain seasons, days of religious observance, times of economic hardship, the number drops, creating anxiety about insufficient income. There are no breaks guaranteed by any system or rule. Women pause between clients only when no one is currently waiting, when the flow of customers temporarily stops. These pauses are precious, used for physical recovery, minimal food, conversation, rest, whatever feels most necessary in that moment. The madam who runs the house controls the schedule, deciding which woman sees which client, managing the flow to maximize house profit while maintaining enough fairness to prevent complete rebellion from the women whose labor generates that profit. Payment is made up front before any service is provided, establishing the purely commercial nature of the transaction from the outset. In 1650, Paris pricing reflects a complex calculation of supply, demand, location, and the specific woman and services involved. A basic, brief visit to a working-class brothel might cost 10 to 20 sols, small coins that represent modest but not insignificant sums. Longer visits or requests for privacy, particular women, or specific acts could reach 1 livre or more, a more substantial amount equivalent to 20 sols. To understand what this money means in context of daily economic reality, a labourer working in construction, hauling goods, or performing other manual work might earn 20 to 30 sols per day for 10 or 12 hours of backbreaking labour. A craftsman with actual skills might earn somewhat more. Rent for a poor room in a working-class neighbourhood could consume most of these daily earnings, leaving very little for food, clothing and other necessities. For the women, the economics are more complex and less favourable. The house takes a large cut of every transaction, often half or more of what the client pays. The madam controls how money is distributed, taking her substantial share and potentially charging the women for room, board and other services. What remains after these deductions determines whether a woman eats well or poorly, whether she can save anything toward future plans or lives entirely day to day, whether this work provides actual survival or merely delays destitution. Some women also face debt to the house itself. Money borrowed for clothing, for medical treatment after violence or illness, for countless other necessities that create cycles of debt that become nearly impossible to escape. The men who visit this brothel are varied in occupation and social status, but certain patterns repeat with remarkable consistency. Many are craftsmen from the city's numerous workshops, men who work with their hands in trades that provide steady income but not wealth. Soldiers from royal garrisons stationed in or passing through Paris, men living in all-male military environments where access to women is limited and controlled. Students from the city's colleges and universities, young men from provincial families sent to Paris for education. Married men seeking something they claim not to find at home, though what they seek is often more about power and control than about physical pleasure. Some men genuinely seek pleasure in some form, though that pleasure is often more about power and control than about mutual satisfaction. Others seek control more explicitly, the ability to purchase another person's compliance, to make demands that would not be tolerated in other contexts. Many seek silence and anonymity more than anything else, a transaction without conversation, without emotional demands, without the complications of actual relationship. Few want anything resembling intimacy in any emotional sense. Most want anonymity, to be unknown, to leave no trace, to have this transaction exist in a separate sphere from the rest of their lives. They want their time not to be connected to their identities, their reputations, their public selves. Time matters to them as well as to the women. They want efficiency, to accomplish what they came for and leave quickly. They want no complications, no conversations that might create obligations, no emotional entanglements, no witnesses who might recognize them. They leave quickly once their paid time is complete. They do not return conversations that the women might attempt. They exit the building separately, avoiding each other, pretending not to have been there at all. Brothels in 1650. Paris are watched closely by overlapping authorities, police, church officials, neighbourhood informants, all of whom have different interests and powers. Police raids happen without warning, often at night when the house is most active. Officers burst in, arrest everyone present, confiscate money and property. Women are arrested far more often than men, who frequently manage to escape or are deliberately allowed to leave while women are detained. Punishments for women are severe and varied, fines that they cannot possibly pay, creating debts that worsen their situations. Public humiliation in forms designed to shame and mark them, being marched through streets, having their heads shaved, being displayed in pillories where crowds can mock and abuse them. Imprisonment in harsh conditions for weeks or months. Banishment from Paris entirely, forcing them into provincial areas where they have no connections or support. The risk is profoundly uneven in its distribution. Men who are caught typically face minimal consequences, perhaps a small fine, perhaps a warning, often nothing at all. Their reputations might suffer slightly if their presence becomes known, but they rarely face formal punishment. Women, by contrast, bear the full weight of legal and social condemnation. Their bodies are marked, their futures constrained, their options further limited. Men walk away from raids and from this work, generally without lasting harm. Women remain exposed to disease, to violence, to legal punishment, to social stigma that marks them permanently. Fear becomes routine rather than exceptional. Women learn to live with constant low-level anxiety, always aware that any day could bring disaster, always watching for signs of impending trouble, always calculating whether to flee or endure. As night deepens and the flow of clients finally slows and stops, the house undergoes its daily ritual of closure and preparation for tomorrow. Candles that have burned down during the evening's work are replaced with new ones, though candles cost money and their use is carefully rationed. Sheets are changed on beds, soiled linens removed for washing, though how frequently this happens depends on the house's standards and resources. Some houses maintain reasonable cleanliness, others do not. Money is counted carefully by the madam, with women watching to ensure they receive their proper shares, though disputes about what constitutes proper shares are common and usually resolved in the madam's favour, since she controls access to the house and to future work. Women leave the house separately rather than together, avoiding the appearance of a group that might attract attention. Some return to shared rooms they rent nearby, crowded spaces where multiple women sleep in minimal accommodations. Some sleep on site, either because they have nowhere else to go or because the madam requires it as a condition of work. A few have actual homes, families who don't know, or pretend not to know how they earn money. Tomorrow we'll repeat this pattern unless something goes wrong, unless there's a raid, unless a client turns violent, unless illness strikes, unless pregnancy occurs, unless any of 1,000 possible disasters manifest. Today, discussions about sex work are political and public, conducted in newspapers, academic journals, legislative chambers, and social media. People debate decriminalization versus prohibition, harm reduction versus abolition, rights versus exploitation. These debates happen in open spaces with named participants, making explicit arguments. In 1650, discussions about sex work were quiet and brutal. They happened in confessionals, where priests heard women's guilt, in court documents recording arrests and punishments, in private correspondence between men sharing information about where to find women. They did not happen in any forum where the women themselves had voices or agency. These women were not invisible. Everyone knew they existed, where they worked, what they did. But they were disposable in ways that made their individual lives and experiences matter very little to those with power. They were part of the city's economic and social ecosystem, providing services that men demanded and paying prices that no one with power cared to prevent. They worked without legal protection, without voice in decisions affecting their lives, without recognition of their basic humanity by the systems that profited from and punished their labour. No one inside this house on an ordinary day in 1650 Paris thought they were participating in history or that their experiences would be studied and reconstructed centuries later. They thought about immediate pressing concerns, about rent that needed to be paid or eviction would follow, about food, whether they'd eat today, what quality of food they could afford, whether hunger would be held at bay, about health, the aches and injuries accumulating in their bodies, the fear of diseases they could see affecting other women, the uncertainty of whether their bodies would continue functioning well enough to do this work. About time, how much longer they could physically and mentally endure this life, how many more years or months their bodies would hold up, whether they could save enough to attempt leaving, about whether leaving was ever truly possible or just a fantasy they told themselves to make today bearable.
If there's another hidden place, another overlooked aspect of everyday life from the past, or another ordinary experience that history
has largely ignored, that you'd like me to bring back into view with this same attention to human reality, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and thanks for engaging with difficult histories that matter precisely because they were so ordinary for the people who lived them.